August 23rd of 23, and today is quite a bit nicer than yesterday. It's not raining, it's broken cloud and sunny, so we're back out here on this old John Deere tractor trying to get it split apart. Made quite a bit of progress. We'll just bring you in a little closer there. We'll show you some details. We got this governor body here. We got it pretty much emptied right out. On either end were these bearing holders. We had these little roller bearings in there, ND3303, of which I'm really having trouble trying to find a pair of them, but we'll get them. There's one on either end. This is the main part of the governor mechanism in there. I do have these weights almost freed up. I got them kind of soaking in some penetrating oil and whatnot. Just got to work them and get them free. This sleeve that slides back and forth in the shaft is still seized up on it. But again, we got to have penetrating oil in it. This bearing at the end of this sleeve is the thrust bearing, of which the fork in the this cavity works on. But it's freed up on the pins on the mounting holes there, but the shaft is seized up on the fork. So I'm gonna I've been trying to pull it out with this extractor, but it's not turning. I don't want to break the shaft or break the fork. It's all cast iron. It's not brass, it's cast iron, so it's going to be pretty delicate. I'm going to take the torch and heat up these two bosses and try to turn this out and then pull that shaft out of there. We'll see what happens. Looks like it's not going to come yet, so I'll give her some more heat. And if it doesn't come with a little more heat, I'll just leave it and reinstall that cotter pin in the hole. I don't want to break that fork. It's not necessary to get out of there anyway. I can put all the pieces back together. You see if it's turning, Phil?
I don't know.
Nope.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think it's turning, so I'm just going to leave it as is. I can work with it in there. We'll just clean it right up, and I can put all the pieces back in there with it there. So I just soon not bust it. Just have to try to find a replacement. I got this governor shaft mounted in the vise here. I've been trying to pull this one gear out. It's got the flyweights to it, but it's not doesn't look like it's going to come easy. I can't get it in my press either because I got two gears on either end. It won't fit in the base of that press. So I'm going to throw some heat on it and see what happens. I got a good torque on it. Helps if you turn the tanks on. Well, nothing broke that I can see. We'll try it again. Nothing broke again, just can't hold on to that gear. So we're going to have to try something else. All we ended up doing was putting a lot more heat to the hub of that sprocket or gear, and then started to crank on her again with that puller, and it eventually came. Is it moving, Phil?
Yeah.
She's going to be a
hard all the way.
She's not getting any easier.
Yeah, it's moved quite a ways.
There's that. There's that gear off of there. A little warm. That's what it took, was quite a bit more heat. Now we can let them all cool off and work those pins free, soak them with some penetrating oil. This thrust washer I don't think can be cleaned up. We're just tapping it away here. Got the one side down and just got to get this other side down. Hopefully we can get this sleeve loosened up. And of course it's starting to rain, so I guess we're going to have to just call her quits at in the outside shop. Now we just have to figure out which way that's got to go. Hopefully it can come out this way. Okay, well, we did manage to push that sleeve up off that shaft, and then once we got it off, it's pretty pitted in here. It was pretty rusty and flaked. I polished it off with the flapper wheel, as clean as I can and smooth as I could dare get it without removing too much material. We had to recover this here thrust bearing, and it's pretty much degraded. It's pitted. The balls in the cages or the balls in the cage is locked right up, but it does slide onto the shaft nice and freely now. I never recovered any numbers off this. I'm going to polish it up and see if I can recover a number off one of these faces. But anyway, we did recover that. The bad news is this sleeve that slides up and down on the shaft here more or less destroyed it. The problem was, like, I cleaned out this area where it's all pitted as well as I could with, you know, wash gun and air and so on and so forth, but it was seized on there, and just the action of pushing it up, the junk in there got in between, and this is so thin and weak that it popped it out and away. So there I am. I think I'm going to be able to braze that together. We'll try that first. It doesn't spin on the shaft per se. It's kind of a stationary, or if it feels like it should spin, it will. It's capable of doing it. But we can braze it together and I'll just see what happens. On top of it, it wasn't quite square on the pushing, when I was pushing it in the press. So broken edge off it, so we pretty much did a complete number on this thing. Well, I'll see if I can braze it together and fix it up, or maybe just go ahead and order a new one. I don't know. Might be able to get a brand new one. We'll see. So anyway, that's that pulled apart as much as we need. I'm not going to pull this gear off. There's no need for it. I'll just clean everything right up, and with a wire wheel clean the gear, the rust off the gear, and clean her up. Fix this here sliding assembly, and order a new thrust bearing plus the roller bearings for each end. I've got my parts guy, he's digging into that right now, see if we can get something coming. So anyway, let's go on to the next phase and see what we can break. We got these shells out of the connecting rods. This one on the flat pulley side doesn't look too terribly bad. It's bad enough. The one on the other side, it was just starting to spin the bearing, and the way I think about it, because the one end of this cap was up underneath the shims between the connector and the cap, so it had traveled that far, which is a hole width, so I think it was starving for oil, and like got spun and it started starving for oil and caused a whole bunch of problems. The material here has been swept around the brass part, so it's in pretty rough shape. More evidence that the engine has been starved for oil or run out of oil. This handy little device here mounts in this here hole down in below there, and the oil comes up here and sends it to both mains from either one of these ports. But to indicate that you got oil pressure, this little plunger comes up, you know, an inch or so, so it indicates you got oil pressure. They didn't have a gauge on these ones, so that was their oil pressure gauge, totally filled with rust from top to bottom. And I'm gonna, this is the lines are actually they were stuck with rust inside the fittings. I managed to get them out of the bottom, but I can't get this one out. So I'm going to heat up the end here and then put a box wrench on here, try to get that broke free from the body and extract the internal. There's a plunger and some springs in there, like a relief valve. I did successfully pull this oil pressure indicator apart. It was totally rusted solid. Just got to wipe a little oil off it here. What I did was I took out these brass fittings and they came out really easy. This was a bit of a chore. I had to take a lot of heat to break this fitting loose, but it did come. And inside, the working part of this is pretty simple. Cast iron body. This hole up here is just a bleed off hole. It just any oil that comes past the plunger dumps out of here and goes back into the crankcase. One of these ports just goes to the main bearings, and in turn go into the crankcase, feeds the journals and up into the piston pins. But it's a pretty simple structure. A little coil spring here, shaft that slides up through there to indicate oil pressure, and this little bit of a poppet plunger. This little piston spring sits on there and it just goes inside. We can get it to line up in there. There we go. As oil pressure gets applied, that pin pops up. That's the relaxed position, but when it's running, it pops up like that. Simple and effective. Don't need no oil pressure gauge there exhibiting PSI. So they just went with that, and that seems to work. When you put this bottom end fitting in there, tightened up, it just goes up against that fitting. Oil pressure goes up through this line, allows oil here, and the piston goes up against the fitting up here, and any bypassing oil comes out that hole. Pretty simple, darn effective device. I lost the extraction segment of the video. Well, I wire wheeled that bore there, cleaned her up quite a bit, and tried to get it to move, but we are unable with our Mickey Mouse pusher up there in the front end to get it to push down. While I was in the tractor, I did get it to move because I could tell on the distance of the block was away from the crankcase, but we're not moving it here now. That's a shot of our Mickey Mouse pushing bar and pipe wrench on there just to push on the end of that piston, push it out, but it's not, I got a block of wood in there, so it's just mangling the block of wood. Well, I think that's as far as I'm going to go with this here segment. It's getting pretty darn long. Never really did anything, but it's getting long. So I'm going to, in the next video, we're going to extract these pistons. I have a plan that I can do it myself, so we're just going to get after that, and then we'll get onto that clutch pulley and flywheel pulley and try to extract that maybe at the same time, depending on how this goes. So anyway, we will catch up to you later.